Hello, my beautiful friends and my fellow space blobs, earth blobs, sparkly blobs, whatever form you want to describe yourself as. I am here for it because we are going to just take a moment today and explore the themes of this Mercury retrograde in Aries coming up. For those of you who have been with me for a little while, you know that I love to just take a moment every Mercury retrograde to set ourselves up to feel the connectedness and the interwoven nature of Mercury. I find this to be one of my favorite and most important transits that happens about 3 times every single year. Mercury is always moving around and weaving in and out of things and giving us different perspective and helping us to renew and connect with ourselves. And so I really love to take that moment. I think even for those of us who have reinvented Mercury retrograde for ourselves and feel confident with it, maybe even enjoy it to some extent, it's really nice still to have these beautiful conversations and just feel really held and seen in that. So we're going to have just a really gentle conversation today, get ourselves all set up to move through this Mercury retrograde, which is happening right in the middle of eclipse season and is happening right as we move through the powerful Aries energetics and is going to connect with things like the North Node and Chiron. So we are working with pretty potent energy for this Mercury retrograde, I have to say, but I have some themes that I think will be really, really powerful and helpful to kind of think about as we move into this. So grab your journals, your artwork, whatever you like to do while I'm chatting away in the background, your tea, your coffee, whatever you enjoy. And let's get into this Mercury retrograde and how to really connect with it and just feed our souls this coming Aries season. I have probably mentioned this before, but Mercury is a really cool element in the whole process of talking about things like astrology and alchemy. So often we talk about Mercury in terms of communication, which of course that's part of it, communing and allowing ourselves to create messages and connect with others. But when we really think about that idea of communication and communion, that is a really powerful concept, right? Because it means that we are taking ideas and feelings and things that are nonverbal and creating ways of communicating that to others, to the rest of the world around us. Similarly, the world's communicating with us. Nature's communicating together all the time on these subtle, powerful levels. So if we're thinking about this idea of Mercury and communication, it seems so standard, and yet it's like the very bones of what's so powerful about living in this world and trying to figure out how to be here. And in the tradition of alchemy, Mercury, that element of Mercury, is known as the seat of the soul, which I've always loved that imagery. And because Mercury plays as this agent that moves between the worlds, that is this between all the levels of consciousness, between all the levels of the world, between every single part of the energetics, Mercury the messenger was also notorious for being able to move through all the realms. Unlike everybody else, there was this ability to move between the underworld and the upper world and the mortal world. And so when we're thinking about Mercury, I always get really inspired because I realize, wow, this is that threading together of so many things, that ability to move between worlds, this powerful traveler that bridges together the subconscious and the conscious, the hidden and the seen, the energetic and the physical, and helping us understand these things together and bring them into harmony and communion. And I've always felt like, so Mercury retrograde for me is just a part of that, right? It's part of that weaving together, and that visual optic illusion of Mercury moving backward in the sky is part of that as well, and that beautiful quick moving energy that's always kind of helping us to weave through the year. So I always like to just mention that as we come in here to Mercury retrograde. It's quite poetic, very powerful, and I know many practitioners like to think about Mercury retrograde as a time of renewal, review, using the word re to kind of think about where we are and what we want to keep doing, what we maybe want to release, what we want to take care of, what we want to integrate. And I've always loved that modality of Mercury retrograde as well. And I wanted to talk, there's 3 things going on with this particular Mercury retrograde that give it particular flavor. So the Mercury retrograde itself is going through April 1st to April 25th. The pre-shadow phase starts on March 19th. So we're already in there with the pre-shadow phase at the time that this comes out. And then we have the actual retrograde between April 1st and the 25th, the post-shadow phase when Mercury moves out of that range of degrees that create the Mercury retrograde is on May 13th. So just giving you kind of a map there. But Mercury retrograde is going to be a little bit tied into the North Node. So this is my first theme. And it's going to begin the pre-shadow phase kind of connected to that North Node. And then at the very end of Mercury retrograde, it's going to connect with it again, right as it stations direct. So this is very symbolic. The North Node, of course, has to do with where we're kind of being called to put our attention right now as a collective and even individually. And you know, Aries is often thought of as this outward, busy energy where it's all about putting all your energy outside. And that's part of it, right? Part of being able to initiate and experience being alive as an individual in the world. That's so at the heart of Aries energetics. However, Aries energy and that flame needs to be taken care of by something that is deeply true. I think Aries does not work well when we are pretending that we love something or we're pretending that we care about something. That will kill our spirit, our flame inside, our lantern inside quicker than anything else, right? And so it's really important if we want to take care of our fire energy in our systems, we want to take care of that initiator, playful beginner energy, that we are doing things we mean. And I think so much about the North Node in Aries has been about that, like really noticing the things that we don't really want to be doing. But we do it because it's keeping the status quo, where we really are longing to change it up. So this Mercury retrograde, with this connection to the North Node, especially as we get to the end of the Mercury retrograde and Mercury stations direct close to the North Node energetics, is really going to be a time of thinking about where we are burning our energy on things we don't mean, you know, on repetitive tasks, on routines, on things that we think we need to be doing. And then finding that the things that we really love doing are put on the back burner, or like we're using the dregs of our energy to do those things that we love, but it's like we're really not honoring them. This is a really great Mercury retrograde for just thinking about the order we're doing things in, how we're connecting to what we really love doing, how much energy we're spending on the things we don't really love spending time on. I realize there can be a limit of choice on some of those things depending on the cycle of life we're in. Like if you have small kids or you have really big responsibilities in life, I definitely understand that. But it's just a time of kind of thinking about what that could look like and where there might be places where we're pinching ourselves off and nobody's even asking us to do that. So a lot of us are going to be thinking about that, where we're really using a lot of energy in spaces that is kind of killing our inner flame, killing our sense of joy and curiosity and wanting to keep being alive, and an encouragement there to spend a little bit more time on the places that recharge us, that fuel our flame, that help us feel excited. So just reflecting on what that could be and maybe where we want to bring that in. It's going to be a huge theme for this Mercury retrograde. The next theme is Mercury and Chiron. So Mercury and Chiron are going to meet up a few times, 3 times during this entire Mercury journey through Aries. So first time that they connect is in the pre-shadow phase on March 20th. Then they will connect during the Mercury retrograde on April 16th. And they will connect one last time in the post-shadow phase on May 8th. So if you like to track those kind of things, you might want to write those dates down and kind of notice what you're feeling. But the fact that these are going to connect 3 different times like this, we're really going over our Chiron energetics. And that's also getting highlighted with the Aries solar eclipse. So this is a really big theme for Aries season, this whole Chiron energetic. It is just present everywhere. And it's a really, really important moment, I think, because Chiron has been in Aries, first entered Aries back in April 2018. And I think this is a really nice time to take care of ourselves. What have the last 6 years been for you? Where have you felt some wounding, some exhaustion, some overwhelm, some death of self? Where have you needed support? Where have you felt like you haven't gotten support? And how do you want to take care of yourself after these 6 years? How do you want to kind of honor what you've been through? And how would you like to support yourself moving forward? Of course, Chiron is also just going to bring up in general big themes around where we are wounded, where we feel like we have fatal flaws that make us unlovable or unworthy of success or joy in life. Because Chiron is this wounded healer archetype, which is all about those things of what our wound is. Our greatest wound is often where we have some deep wisdom, some deep knowledge that we can give to ourselves, to others, use within our lives. So as we go through this Mercury retrograde, I think a lot of us are going to be exploring how we reframe the things that we think of as problematic or troublesome in our lives, or places where people have told us, oh, you don't have value because of X, Y, and Z. I know for me, I've been thinking about that a lot, and the fact that I often think that I move very slowly in life and that I'm too sensitive. And even though I've done a lot of work to accept that I have the system I have, I've got like antennae everywhere that can feel and sense everything around me at all times. And of course, it's a beautiful thing. Those of us in this space probably can relate to that experience a lot, but still living in a world that tells me that's inconvenient or not real, I always have times where I need to reintegrate and think about how I'm treating myself when it comes to my need to go a little bit slower, my need to look around a little bit longer, and my need to just take care of my sensory system. Those are also the places that allow me to commune with the other side and to sit with the energetics of the world. And those are really important parts of who I am. So this is a really beautiful time of just taking care of ourselves, like really just honoring who we are with all of our needs, all of our desires, all of the things that it might be true about where we are with our health or our bodies or who we think we need to be. So it's a pretty powerful one, and just how do you want to take care of yourself is really what that Mercury retrograde in Chiron, and also how you want to retell the story of the wounded places in you or the places that feel like they don't fit into the mainstream ideal. The final theme for this Mercury retrograde is going to be eclipse season, because this Mercury retrograde starts right in between the two eclipses, essentially. So we have that Libra lunar eclipse on March 25th, and then Mercury retrograde starts on April 1st, April Fool's Day, really fun there. And then we have the total solar eclipse in Aries on the 8th. So Mercury retrograde is really entwined with a lot of the things that we're going to be exploring here during eclipse season. This is an eclipse season that has a lot to do with how we treat ourselves and how we communicate with others, and how we have a relationship with ourself and other, because it's an Aries Libra axis conversation going on there. And it comes back to this theme that came up with the North Node in Aries that I was just talking about a few minutes ago. This is a time of deep honesty, and I think this will be a very deeply honest eclipse season. A lot of us are going to be getting very deep insights about what we really want, and what we actually want to put our energy towards, what we actually want to say yes to. And I know I talk about that a lot in this space, but I think it's so important. That's like the journey of a lifetime, to really figure out what feels really truly good to each of us, especially those of us who have shut that down in order to be available to our loved ones, to get the work done, to keep ourselves alive. This is a really powerful time of getting very honest about what we really mean, what we really want. And I think with Mercury retrograde happening during the eclipse season, I think it's actually really beneficial, because I always say this, Mercury retrograde is about stepping out of linear time. It's about stepping out of the kind of this results-based, I'm going to get it done mentality that so many of us feel like we have to abide by in order to exist in this world. And I think, preparing to think about this time as not being about it being results based, not about it being about getting things done, but about really integrating and being with ourselves. I think that can help us actually integrate what we're learning with those eclipses, what we're learning about ourselves and what we're opening up to during those eclipses. The Mercury retrograde allowing us to slow down enough to really hear and sense and feel without it constantly being about outward expression is really powerful. And I think taking that Aries energetic and making it a little bit more internal about what motivates us, what brings us to life, what really feels true, what feels true even when we don't feel like we have to rush around into the world and do everything and get everything done. So I think this is actually a really, really beneficial time for this Mercury retrograde energy to be working with us so that we can take a breath. If you can, in April this year, go easy on yourself. I promise you can still be doing projects, connecting with people, conversing, creating, chatting, exploring, doing all of those great things. And you can also be nicer to yourself, kinder to yourself, gentler. Take extra things off your plate if you can. You know, if you have a whole bunch of extra phone calls and meetings and you just need some time to integrate, try and figure out where you can make little spaces for that. Where can you simplify things? Where can you just allow yourself to have a simpler schedule for a few weeks if you can? Where can you just make it easier on yourself? Like if you meal prep or eat something simple, if, you know, cooking uses a lot of energy, or you know, if you can just however you want to kind of think about how you want to seriously take care of yourself and allow yourself to integrate the Chiron, the North Node, and the eclipse energies that are moving through Aries right now. I think that's so important. We're going to keep seeing this theme in the coming weeks with this Aries energy moving through, that it's not immoral to feel like you have self love and that you have self-esteem and that you feel assertive with yourself and your value in your own life. I think so many of us feel like we're breaking a rule by really acknowledging that and mothering and parenting and caring for ourselves in a really deep and powerful way. And that is exactly what this Mercury retrograde is really about. Do you honor that you exist? That it matters that your preferences, your needs matter, and that they're not something that you just get to at the end of the day after everybody else. And how are we treating ourselves within that? And is it okay to maybe experiment a little bit with taking care of our inner lantern more than everything else? Yeah, so I hope that is a helpful framing of this Mercury retrograde. If you would like to join me for our journey through the major arcana, we are only a few weeks in as this comes out, and you can catch up on all of the sessions so far. It is a 12-week journey through the 22 cards of the major arcana in tarot, and I'm helping us activate those archetypes in really, really powerful ways so that we can feel the energy of the other world, the unseen world, and feel really initiated into it, as well as expanding on our tarot practices and reclaiming it and creating safe spaces for those practices. So if you want to join me for that, that is over on my Patreon, along with all of our weekly chats, our activations for the new and full moons and the eclipses happening this season, and so many more resources that really allow me to support you so much more. So I'd love to see you over in that space. You can find the details in the description below. I also love it when you're here. This space means so much to me, and those of you who have been riding along with me for these last years, I just appreciate you so much. The last couple of years, I have gone through so much transformation since I stopped doing the monthly readings, and for those of you who have just enjoyed riding along on the journey with me, it means the world. So thank you so much. I would love it if you stick around. We have so much more coming up with the Aries solar eclipse, with new energy evolving and opening up this April. So I'm really looking forward to talking about that. Please take care of yourselves. I will see you here very, very soon for our next conversation, and have a beautiful Mercury retrograde. Make it your own.